Hello, Nancy.
Hi.
How are you?
Doing okay.
There was a little bit of a hesitation there. All right. Okay, I think I'm ready.
Pen.
I forgot to look to see how many people are going to be on today. So how are your kiddos doing?
Oh, okay so far.
Yeah.
I got one we're working on getting him a hotspot so that he can get online because they don't have internet where they live.
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit yesterday. That's an issue. I know, especially some of the rural areas are really struggling because there's not even a good cell signal down there, so hotspots don't necessarily even work.
Yeah, I wondered about that too, but I said something to Mr. Reese about that, about the hotspot, but he hasn't emailed me back. He's going to see what he can do.
I wonder if I know Comcast is working with like the Peoria Public Schools, and I'm sure they're working with Pekin Public Schools. I wonder if
Pekin's doing Verizon.
Verizon.
Yeah, they bought like 500 whatever hotspots. I think he told me this morning.
I didn't know if some of the smaller schools the private schools could tag and get into that also, or I don't know how that works.
I don't either. I'm lucky I can do what I do. I'm getting better.
Hi, Lori. Hello, everyone. Laura, you've got a big L over your face. Is that on purpose?
I'm sorry, what?
For a minute there, it was just stuck. You had your big L for your icon over your face. I didn't know if you did that on purpose or if
no.
So how is everybody today?
Good.
Hey.
Good.
So Laura, you got your uploading problem fixed?
Yes, I think what I'm going to do from now on is just directly record through Google Classroom. So I think that's going to be way easier than having to upload because the amount of time that's taken is ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're not the only person that has that trouble, and I'm not sure if it's, I talked earlier, there's a difference between download speeds and upload speeds on a lot of internet providers, and so sometimes they slow down things that you upload because people do less of that, but now we're requiring people to do more of it. So they're finding that that's an issue.
Gotcha. I didn't even think of that.
Yeah.
And you did get my email regarding the devices, right?
I did, yes. Yep.
Okay. So
Yep.
we sit and wait. So
Yeah. Yep. I sent this email out yesterday, but I do want to remind you, if you've got kids in particular at home that don't have devices, I know districts are working really hard to get devices home to the kids, but and this program's been going on for years, but through Infinitec, they have the Assistive Technology Exchange Network where they take donated computers and tablets and things, and they refurbish them, and then you can families or the schools can purchase one for $35, and then they can use it anywhere. They can use it at school, they can use it at home. So it's a inexpensive way to get some technology into the hands of the kids. And I sent that link yesterday. I'll send it again today if anybody needs it. But so I'm just gonna go ahead and get started. So today I wanted to talk about STEM or STEAM activities that you can do with the students remotely at home. Even if you're not a STEM teacher or you don't teach science or something like that, I think that this is the perfect opportunity for students to, I'll go back to that in a minute, but students to take this unstructured time that they have and really explore some of the activities and the making things and being creative, because it's going to be very difficult for teachers and even students to have structured learning activities for the whole day. And there are even districts are trying to not go that route because it's going to be so much effort and work, and you're going to have so much internet time and all those things that are going to be a struggle. So if you could guide your students to explore a topic or a science topic, or try making things out of materials that they already have, then you can kind of touch back with them and see what they've made and talk about the learning that went on with it and all of those kinds of things. So, and I love STEM activities myself. I like technology and my own kids. We do these activities frequently. But what I want to talk about is, why now is a good time for STEM activities. I touched on that already. Looking at Genius Hour, and I don't know if I've mentioned this, Lori, I think I talked to you a little bit about Genius Hour.
yes.
But, how to use that outside of school instead of just taking the time during school. Then I just put together some low-tech ideas for those that don't have technology or consistent internet, and then some different online activities. So I just wanted to share that with you and then just see how you guys might use some of this. So if you're thinking about how you want to structure your day, think about what kids would naturally do if they weren't in school and they didn't have any structure to their day, and trying to incorporate those things. And I know, I do know a lot of kids would probably sit on video games all day, but how can we use that to some sort of educational balance, purpose? Because that's going to be the struggle that parents are going to have. Teachers are going to possibly push out assignments and ideas, but then the parents are going to be the ones that have to enforce this. And how do you take what the kid wants to do naturally and turn it into a thing? So I think if the teachers start out with that mindset, like, your kids, what do your kids like to do? So how can we take some of those activities and turn it into some sort of educational purpose? And so, and I love this. This is a slideshow that it talks about Genius Hour. And if you don't know what Genius Hour is, it's where, in a nutshell, you take a set amount of time during the week, and this is, think about in the classroom, before all of this at-home learning took place. But you take a certain amount of time during the week, whether it's 1 hour or 2 hours, and you talk to the kids about what are they passionate about, what do they like to do in their free time, what are they good at, and you build upon those things, and then you turn them loose with very little instruction, so some guidance, but very little instruction, and you let them try to solve some problems and build some sort of presentation or product or something that shows what they've been working on. And so, you know, it's used in the schools to give the students some opportunities during the school day to demonstrate what they know in a different way, in a format that they enjoy. But now if we take this idea and put it at home, use the same concept and talk to them about what they enjoy, what they like to do, and then giving them some guidance on how they can put that into some sort of project or format or something that they can share with you to show you what they're learning. And I'm not going to go through this whole slideshow. I did not create this slideshow. The author is down here, Michelle Wagner. I saw a presentation, she shared it. It's really awesome, but it goes through the steps. So this is, I would, if you're a teacher or instructor, look through this first. I wouldn't necessarily send this out to the students because this is something you would do as a class, but it's going to give you a lot of ideas on how to guide some activities that you can send home to your students. And so it goes through like the launch cycle and design thinking, if you're familiar with that at all. It talks about how, it gives some ideas of how students can share information about themselves and what they're good at. So their interests, and this presentation actually is fillable, so you can type on it, and you could essentially send this to the students and say, okay, fill this out. But it gives a lot of information about how to figure out what you're good at and why you need to use your talents and your interests to make the world a better place. Okay, and so thinking about a problem in the world and how am I going to use my interests and talents to do that. So this first part is really kind of self-exploration. And then we talk about coming up with some sort of project. And there's a bunch of steps to figure out here about narrowing down your focus to something that's very focused. So how would you work with your kids? And again, this is intended to be a classroom activity, but if you can take elements of it and send these home in small chunks, you know, every day do a different step or once a week or whatever, with some different activities. And then there are some fantastic videos that are embedded in this presentation. And this is about Kane's Arcade, and we're not going to watch it right now, but essentially this I can't remember how old he is, 8 or 9-year-old, had to go to work with his dad every day in South LA, and his dad ran basically a junkyard. And so this kid was bored, and so he just started taking cardboard boxes, and he made his own video arcade out of cardboard boxes. And he was actually charging money and things like that, but he wasn't getting any visitors until this one guy stopped by who was a film producer and made a short video and then put it out on YouTube. And then, you know, hundreds of people started coming to his arcade in this little junkyard shop. And he started a movement, and they call it, you know, Cardboard Day, where people take cardboard and they just start making things. And it's very, very cute. But it's just that idea of taking things, this, you know, low-tech ideas, not necessarily something you need technology for, but taking something that the kids already enjoy and having them make something out. So with the teacher guidance of, you know, figuring out a problem or figuring out what you're interested in, then guiding them to, okay, what materials do you have access to, and what could you do with those? And then there's another video of Audrey's Rube Goldberg machine. And I really like this one because she makes a machine, but then she also sort of uses the scientific method or data collection to, she tallies how many times it was successful and where was the breakdown and those kinds of things. So she has some data afterwards, and she's also a young student. So you can watch those videos to kind of get some ideas, but they're embedded in this presentation here. And then you talk a lot about creativity, And let's see, it talks about why it's important to, if something doesn't work, to try again and to keep trying until you get it to work. There's a rule that says 10,000 hours of practice makes you an expert, something like that. Anyway, again, lots of information in this. It's broken down by days, but again, this was meant for a classroom activity. So take the elements that you think are beneficial to getting your kids interested in something so that they're going to want to do it instead of sending out a worksheet and having their parents have to enforce it. That's kind of the idea I'm trying to get through, is helping the kids develop some sort of self-interest and motivation to do something educational on their own. If this pandemic continues for a lot longer, you know, it's going to be a struggle for teachers to keep sending out assignments every day. So we've got to sort of build that self-awareness in the students to do some things on their own. And then if you keep scrolling down, it talks about how you would sell your idea. If you made something or developed something, how would you sell it to people? So using the Shark Tank as a way to pitch it. And then also, there was another one. Oh, how to do a TED Talk. So how would you take your information and put it into a sort of a presentation that you could deliver? So lots of information in this slides. Again, just use what you can out of it. Share videos with the students. It's just some really good information. And this isn't necessarily just STEM related. If you've got kids interested in math or whatever, everyone, math's part of it, but or writing or reading, use these activities to encourage those educational activities at home. So this is in, I'm going to go back here. I forgot to mention this bit.ly link down at the bottom here is a link to a folder where that presentation is located, so you can use that. All right. Any quick questions about Genius Hour? If you use parts of it now, then I would encourage looking at a way to structure your week when you go back to school to get some Genius Hour activities in. I know that the school my kids go to, they have, like, on Friday afternoon for 2 hours, they let the kids work on their Genius Hour project, and then they do that all semester, and then at the end they share their projects. It's a little bit different than project-based learning just because you as the teacher are not assigning or have a rubric or anything. It's very self-directed into what they're interested in. So I'm sure you guys are more creative than I am, but I just wanted to remind you that, you know this, but technology or lack of it is going to be an issue. And even if they do have a hotspot that somebody is donating or a device or something like that, there's still going to be issues with kids sharing. You know, so how can you, as a teacher, find out what they're interested in and then use that to guide some activities and thinking about low-tech ideas? And so one of the things that my two girls have loved to do for the last year or so is watch YouTube videos on making slime. And there's all kinds of slime activities out there and different recipes and different things like that. So what we did was, I'm going to show you a picture here. I just had them talk about the different kinds of slime that they had seen on YouTube. And they had to then just make a chart. And we're in the middle of this, but taking that chart and Lori, is that your, do you mind muting yourself if, I don't know what that is.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. And maybe it's not you. Anyway, taking that chart and talking about the different kinds of slime that they want to make, and then writing some descriptions about it. How does it feel? How does it look? What's the consistency? And then collecting some data. So if you know you've got kids that like something, how can you just quickly turn that into, okay, now collect some data on what you're doing and kind of turn it into a science activity. or a data collection activity, just so that they can see that, oh, I like this and I'm good at it. So what, now, you know, I'm going to collect some data for my teacher. So although I will say that even though this is a low tech activity, it is not inexpensive. You need a lot of glue to make slime, and especially if you're making a lot of it. And then there's a picture of my daughter after she made some slime there. And they got a little science kit a while ago, and they were making it in the test tubes. It was very cute. All right. So then other low-tech ideas is use any kind of material to create something like Kane's Arcade. So go back and watch that video, and you know, he just took some old cardboard boxes and made something. So find out what your kids have in their homes, if they have access to any kind of art materials or anything like that. And then creating board games and card games is a great way for them to use what you've learned. So you could give them idea, okay, create a board game using some math concept that we've talked about, or create a card game, you know, with some math. And then there's lots of instructions online where you could help send them to figure out how to make the different board games and some different steps that they could take to do that. And then, of course, then they have something to play with their family when they're bored, if they're bored. The important thing here, though, I think, is that you are, as the teacher, are kind of guiding them and giving them some suggestions and trying to make what they're already doing or what they're already interested in into a learning activity. And so asking for some sort of documentation, like send me a picture of your creation or a video, or even just write about what you did, is just tying that then educational activity into what they're already doing. Let's see. Next slide. There are lots and lots of online activities that they could do. But here are some of my favorites. And I just wanted to show you a couple if you're not familiar with them. One of my absolute favorites is Scratch. And what Scratch is a kids coding or programming tool. And so they would just go to this address, and they do have to create an account. They can explore without creating an account, but it doesn't save their work. But then it's just drag and drop coding. And so again, even if you're not familiar or comfortable doing this, if you can give the student an idea and then send them to the right resource, this is something that they can figure out on their own. And I've used it with kids all the way down to 2nd grade. I mean, it can be used up through high school, but you know, it's just very, very basic coding. And you know, you take, you just drag over the codes. When the space bar is pressed, move 10 steps. I mean, very, very basic. So now when I hit my space bar, the cat moves across the screen. And there are some tutorials up here, and this is kind of what I would suggest, is how to create a story. So you have different characters on your screen, and you can make them either talk, the student can record their voice and make them talk, or you can use speech bubbles. So you could have them, a story that they're reading, you could have them summarize it using 2 different characters. And so this, basically, you would send them this link up here, and it would take them to this little video on how to so they would watch that video then, and then they could use that idea to, you could tie it to some sort of educational activity. Again, once I show this to students, they usually kind of take off with it. I know I was working with some students in Lori's class, and they, one of them, they're 7th and 8th graders, but one of them made a gene. When you talk about genes and dominant genes and recessive genes, he made some sort of science Scratch project, and the principal and everybody looked at it. And it was fantastic. So just a very cool kind of intro to coding program that you can tie into a lot of different activities. And again, once you introduce them to it, even if you give them a little bit of guidance and a little bit of structure, then if it's something that they're interested in, they will just use it all the time and get on and hopefully do this instead of some of the other things they might be doing that are not as educational. So that's just real quick Scratch. Again, if you have, we'll talk a little bit afterwards, but if you have more detailed questions, you can email me. Another one that I really like is Tinkercad. And Tinkercad is, it's actually a very powerful kind of AutoCAD type program for kids. You know, you sign in and then you use the program to design 3D shapes and 3D projects. And if you have access to a 3D printer, you can actually print these things. This is what my own kids use to create some different things. I'll show you. I did not design this, but I needed a microphone stand, so we 3D printed a microphone stand that I had found online. Somebody else had designed, so myself and my kids like to use this program to do different things. But again, it's very easy. You show the students how to get into it, and then there's some tutorials and some different things, but then they can take the different shapes and create different 3D designs. So you could show them how to, you could give them a design or a topic or an assignment, like create a birdhouse or something like that. And then they could actually create the birdhouse, and then you can share with the teacher, you can share with other peers. You can invite people to work on a design with you, so you can get some of that collaboration going. This is one that these online activities that I'm showing you would have to be, you would have to have internet and some sort of device. They do work in Chrome, and they work limited on iPads and things like that, but you can use these pretty much with any device, but you do have to have internet to do that. Another thing with Tinkercad, if we're talking about exploring, and especially if you have older students, I'm going to try to go back here. They have other parts to this too. It's not just 3D design. They have a circuit. So if you teach science, they have a circuit one where you can create circuits, and you can talk about electricity and batteries, and they can actually design their circuit and test it to see if it would work, those kinds of things. So Tinkercad, and then they have some code blocks here, which is very similar to Scratch, where you're coding within Tinkercad, and lots of lesson ideas. So if you are looking for ideas for lessons, again, this is something that you could use all the way down, probably 3rd grade, maybe even lower if you've 2nd grade, if you've got some kids that need something like that. So that's Tinkercad. If you have students interested in any kinds of, these are all simulations. This PhET is interactive simulations, and interested in physics or chemistry or science, things like that. There's lots and lots of math and science simulations in here that they can explore. So it's not necessarily like science practice or science lessons or things like that. So you would give them, again, some guidance on what are you interested in. And so if you look at this waves, when I was playing with this earlier, and these all, you can download these, but they all work online also. And so if you've got kids interested in light or sound or even water, there's different simulations you can do with light and sound. And you turn it on, it shows you the different waves, and you can change the frequency and the amplitude, and they have a little tape measure so you can measure things. I mean, there's just so many different activities that you can do here just to kind of get the kids exploring the world around them and those kinds of things. So I'm trying to go back here. They have, again, and I'm not sure you really want to send something out on how a virus spreads, but they have some different activities on diffusion and gas properties, and it kind of shows how things spread out. It's not necessarily a virus simulation, but it's similar to like some of the things they've been seeing on the news and those kinds of things. So just very interesting, lots and lots of activities for you to explore, for the students to explore. And again, it's unstructured, so it's not like a guided lesson activity necessarily. Any questions about any of those so far?
Are all of these free?
These are all, yes, these are all free. They all do require, well, the FET does not require an account, but the other two do. This next one was very interesting. I actually watched a webinar last week on this, and what Tello is it's a drone that you actually purchase, and you can use Tello EDU to program this drone. But what was interesting was, even if the kids don't have access to the drone, which I can't imagine any of them do, even if you don't have access to them at your school, I'm going to switch my screen here, so give me just a minute. There's an app that you can download, and this one is limited to the phones and tablets. You can't do it on the Chromebook or the computer, but I just found it super fascinating. What this one does is, oh shoot. Give me just a second, I'm sorry. Okay. So what this one does is it allows you to program your drone on your laptop. And so again, I have my motion. This is, again, very similar to Scratch. It's kind of drag and drop programming. And then, even if you don't have an actual drone, you can run a simulation of what it does. So you could, okay, so we're talking about social distancing right now. And I know delivery drivers and all those kinds of things. A lot of them are worried about how to protect themselves. So you could give a project to your students and say, like, how could you use a drone to deliver packages for Amazon? I know that Amazon's already working on it, and have your kids like use this simulation to program a drone to fly around to deliver packages. Something like that you could really get the kids interested in what they're doing. With what's going on and tie it into things that they're interested in. Go back here. Okay. I'm on the wrong screen. Share. Okay. Now we're here. And then the other thing I do like about this is they can save their work, and then if you happen to have a spare $100 when you go back to school, you can purchase one of these drones, and then they can actually try them out with an actual drone. But I just thought that if they're at home and they're interested in this kind of stuff, that they could play around with the simulation, and you could tie it into some sort of activity for them. A couple of last things that I just wanted to share. Minecraft, I'm sure you've all heard of. one of the things that my own kids have done is, because they're missing their friends and they're not able to see their friends, both Minecraft and Roblox you can find your friends and have multiplayer games, and both of them actually have a lot of learning and problem solving that goes in with them. So taking, again, some of those kids that might sit on Minecraft or video games all day, taking them and guiding them towards some of these multiplayer games that they can play with their friends that are a little bit more educational, or at least have some good problem solving in with them. If you've never heard of Roblox, there's a lot of games. It's really good for younger kids too. And they can choose which game they want and which room they want to be in, and meet up with their friends that way. And you can kind of set some parameters. We don't let our kids go in with strangers, so you can set some parental controls kind of on that, so that you're not just your kids are not just out there with who knows who. But in Minecraft also, we set up a server, and my son and his friends are the only ones that can get onto that game. So just some ideas. These, again, all of these online activities do require a device or internet or both. But if you can get through that hurdle the next couple of days of getting your kids a device, then maybe you can start sending out some of these activities and see what they can do and what they can't do. And then just one last note before I open it up for discussion. Remember to part of this social distancing and the online learning that I've been hearing a lot about is try not to send out too much, try not to send out busy work, try to send out activities that are actually helping them grow in a different environment, and then have them share with you and with their classmates what they're working on. They need that feedback, and they want to feel good about what they're doing. So just whatever activity you're having them do, find some way to share with you and the larger community, so that they feel they don't feel as isolated. And I think that's the number one goal right now, is to make sure families are connected, schools are connecting with the families, but then kind of that return, make sure that you're touching, your kids are connecting with each other. They're touching each other in some way. So what do you guys think?
When you were going through Scratch, I was looking at Brain Pop yesterday, and there's a link on there, or a part of Brain Pop. They have some kind of coding in there, so that was kind of neat to see.
Yeah, so Scratch was probably the original. It's been around for a lot of years, but Code.org and Code Academy, those all use that same kind of coding, drag and drop blocks. As far as I know, Scratch is, so those actually have lessons that walk you through how to program, where Scratch is really just open. They have some lesson videos and things like that, but it's not necessarily teaching you how to program. It's more of exploring. And I think that I like that, especially at this time, to really let the kids dive deep into what it is that they're interested in, because we don't have a lot of structure and we don't have a way to monitor them all the time. So really they need that incentive to kind of work on their own interests. Anybody else have anything else? Are you guys just struggling with coming up with ideas, or are you just sending out, I don't even know. I heard some schools are not teaching any new lessons at all, and they're just trying to maintain. Is that kind of what you guys are doing?
Yeah. I'm trying to do some cross-curricular activities. So I did a read aloud day before, and about the character got stuck in quicksand. So I went online and I found out how to make quicksand and an easy recipe. So the kids were doing that yesterday, and they reflected through Class Dojo, and they told me a way to how they can survive quicksand. So
Yeah, that's exactly, I mean, that's perfect. I think that's what we kind of need to be doing now with the students.
my concern was just, do my parents have the materials? I mean, cornstarch probably, but maybe not.
Right.
But I think many of them did. The ones that I talked to seemed to have it, or flour would be an okay substitute. But I
Right.
like the idea of the cardboard. I mean, 'cause lots of things with cardboard. We had them make like a flea circus. We read an article. This man was the last well-known flea circus. He developed a circus for fleas. And so we read an article about that, and then I had them construct their own and use some math in there. They had to measure it, the perimeter and the area of the flea circus, and then they had with the art and show, specific things about the fleas would actually be doing. So,
Mhm.
I mean, that was kind of fun for them. I think some of them like to do that, but
Yeah. I was thinking back, using that 3D Tinkercad program and having them design their house. They're either design the house that they live in now, or design their dream house, or something like that. Kind of get them thinking, and then you could tie the math in about area and perimeter and scale and all that kind of stuff.
And which one was that again? Which one?
Tinkercad.
Tinkercad. Okay, I'll look into that one. Yeah, these are very helpful. So.
Lori, how about you?
Yeah.
Just gonna have
Our district has only allowed us to give learning packets for right now.
Okay.
So we are not allowed to alter, change, or add to, or give any additional assignments or interactives as of now. So I'm hoping and praying that will change. I think it's going to. So that's the hope. So I've just been communicating with families on Remind. We were told not to give multiple emails to parents, not to overwhelm them. So that's what I've been doing. And unfortunately, most of my students don't have devices. So it's really hard to communicate with them. So I've been just mailing check-in cards to their houses.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and if your district opens up a little bit, and you could utilize a lot of those low tech
Absolutely
options. Yeah. Well, anything else that you guys have? Any other? Do you guys have any ideas of things that I could do next week? I've got a couple I'm working on, but topics that you would want covered, or how-tos, or anything like that?
This might sound stupid, but could you do a how to do the Zoom, like use the Zoom, how to invite people to that? That would be great, because I have a feeling I'm going to have to start using that.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people have gotten on, and in all honesty, I think using Zoom is just that initial fear of, okay, now I have all these people connected and the technology's not going to work. But I would be glad to do that, because if I can make you feel comfortable with that, then you can get on and utilize that. It's a great program. I might suggest though, your district has Google, right?
Correct.
Yeah, Google Meet would probably be a better thing, because it is free. Zoom does have a cost to it.
Okay.
But Google Meet does almost the identical thing. I personally don't. What's that?
Is that the same as Hangout?
No.
Okay.
It's similar, and they do tie together a little bit, but Google Meet is actually more of a group of people. Hangouts is really meant for just one or two or three people to kind of hang out.
Gotcha.
Google Meet is very similar to Zoom.
Perfect.
Yeah, so I'd be glad to, I did one last week on the differences between the two, but I would be glad to focus in specifically on whichever one you want. So
I feel like I must have missed that somehow. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I think it was one of the first ones I did, but
Okay. Thank you.
Since you mentioned Zoom, I'm going to try it for the first time today And you said there's a cost to it? I didn't see that.
So the free version only allows you to go for 40 minutes.
Okay.
And so that probably will be more than enough for
Yeah.
what you're doing. The other thing though that I know that some districts, and there was talk that they're relaxing this, but it's also not HIPAA compliant. The free version is not HIPAA compliant. So if you're doing any kind of therapy or you're worried about security or anything like that, you really need to pay for it. So I know a lot of therapists that were interested in using it, but they had to be careful with that.
I'm just mainly using it just so the kids can see their,
Yeah.
social interaction a little bit. And then, do they need a password? Because I sent them, I pasted a link to get there. And when I went into it, I mean, I guess from my perspective, I don't need a password, but will they be prompted to put in a password? Like,
no, when you set it up, you can set it up so that a password is required. But
yeah.
by default, that should not ask for a password. So they shouldn't need one unless you specifically checked that box.
Okay, I probably should have because I don't think I did, but I could go back in and do that.
You can, yep, you can go back
Okay.
in and edit your meeting, and just be careful too. I made this warning earlier, but if you post a link to a Zoom meeting and you don't have a password set on it, and that post, either if you post it in an email or something, and then other people get a hold of that and there's no password protection, they've had a lot of classrooms where people are Zoom bombing is what they call it. And they're popping in and, yeah. So just be careful with who you give that, if you're not going to use a password, who you give that out to and how they get it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I appreciate your guys' time. Again, check my website and everything. I'll put it back up on the screen if you don't already have it. Next week's will be up soon, so you can check that out and see if there's anything that you're interested in. And please forward this to any of your colleagues that might be interested as well.
I did forward it to our special ed directors in the hopes that they would pass it out to other teachers in our district. So, and I also did it on Facebook.
Awesome.
So I'm hoping that my teacher friends will get in connection with you because you've been so awesome. So thank you so much.
Well, you're welcome. You're welcome. All right. Well, you guys have a great day. And I'm off tomorrow. I'm doing other things. So have a good weekend too.
You too. Thank you so much,
Thank
Ken.
you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Hello.